Hello everybody, this is Eric from the Hilltop Institute, and today we'll be going through the DDA General Ledger template for FY25. So on our agenda today, we'll be talking about the purpose of the General Ledger template. We'll be going through some of the updates to this year's version of the General Ledger template, and I'll be going over the instructions document and giving you a step-by-step guide on how to complete your template. Finally, we'll finish up with some tab highlights from each service tab category. So what is the purpose of the GL template? Well, DDA requires that all providers of traditional Medicaid DDA waiver services complete the GL template annually. So the purpose of the template is to provide a tool for providers to report their cost data in a standardized format consistently across the entire system and on an annual basis. So this ensures that DDA has enough data to utilize in order to create data-driven rates. We've had a lot of feedback in the past FY24 GL template data collection effort, and we've incorporated it into this year's GL template, and we'd like to outline some of the changes that we've made right here. So we've added some clarifications on when to use specific residential or rehabilitation tabs. So this is a guide underneath each service name in the background tab, and it details the use case of that tab. For example, in the residential service category, we have tab R2dh.cl, and this tab is what we call our catch-all tab. So this should be the only tab that you use if you are using this tab in the residential service category. So this captures both base service costs as well as add-on supports and dedicated hours in the same tab. Now, if you're able to break out the add-on supports and dedicated hours from the base service costs, then we ask that you report your add-on supports and dedicated hours in R0 rather than R2, and then we ask that you report your base service costs in the base service tabs like R3, R4, and so on. And if you're using R0, we ask that you do not use R2, and we've embedded logic in the template that prevents these tabs from being simultaneously selected. So we've outlined those for both those cases for both residential and rehabilitation services in the background tab as well as the instructions document. Further, we've added more details on how to report direct service provider staffing patterns in the provider information tab. We've also revamped how tabs display in the template. So we have the Service Information tab, which is now a user interface. It's a new tab that provides a user interface for the selection of service tabs. And it also allows for the customization of service tabs. So you can narrow the columns down to your particular billing system, whether that be LTSS Maryland or PCIS2, or a combination of the both. As well as your billing region, which we'll go into a little bit later. It's the same as from last year with the geographic differential region and the rest of state region. But we're able to display a tailored service tab and only the service tabs that apply to your organization just by you selecting them in the service information tab. And we've also decided to move to a drop-down menu system for the reporting of cost items. So in the past, you had to report cost items with an accounting code and then a code description, most importantly, alongside the expenses for that item. And now we've moved to drop-down menus, and we've mapped previous cost items that you may have reported last year. We've mapped those into our current selection of drop-down menus for each cost category within the Crosswalk of Cost Items tab. That is also a new tab within the GL template. In order to make all of these things work, we need to enable macros and active content in the Excel document. And we've created a tutorial for that. It's a video on the DDA website right next to this video, where this video will be posted. And it's also we also have step-by-step instructions available in Appendix C of the instructions document. So speaking of the instructions document, let's get into it. So the instructions document will begin with a brief overview and a broad overview of the purpose of the GL template as we just discussed, as well as the data that it will be used to collect. We would like to make a note on cost allocation methods right here at the start. We're requesting that these responses, which will be for each cost category on the provider information tab, we request that you enter narrative string text answers detailing your methodology rather than totals that are numerical values. So please do not report numerical values in this section. What we're looking for is a description of how you broke down costs across the service tabs and across the services that you provide. For example, for the direct care staff cost category, this often includes wages or salaries for DSPs. And so that would be a time-based methodology for cost allocation. And some other cost allocation methodologies include share of revenue and square footage. That pertains particularly to the facility cost category. We'd also like to note that evidence that the GL template reconciles with audited financial statements will not be required and is not required currently. The instructions document will then go into FY25 template updates and then provide a tab completion guide. So we ask that you start with the provider information tab, filling out information such as your LTSS Maryland number, the name of your organization, your contact information, your cost allocation methodologies, and then information on your DSPs, from their wages to their staffing figures at the beginning and end of the fiscal year. Then we'd like you to move on to your service information tab, which outlines the services that your organization provides, and we'd like you to select those and tailor those according to how your organization provides them and where. Then we'd like you to move to populate your service tabs with cost data using the drop-down menus. We'd also like you to go through a review process that mirrors the completion process. So we'd like you to review your provider information tab to ensure that all of the data in it is accurate. We'd like you to review the service information tab to ensure that all of the services that your organization provides and bills for are selected and are displaying within the template. Then we'd like you to review your service tabs to ensure that all of the data is accurate and has been appropriately categorized, and also includes hours when time-based items are present. Additionally, we have a new GL template naming convention. We'd like you to use your provider name _ FY25 _ GL. Finally, the instructions document rounds out with tables and appendices. Tables and appendices that you'll see in the background tab, the cost categories defined tab, and the crosswalk cost items tab, with the addition of the instructions for enabling macros and active content in Excel in Appendix C. So let's hop right into the GL template. So the tabs that you'll see displayed at the bottom are the background tab, the cost categories defined tab, the crosswalk cost items tab, and the provider information tab, as well as the service information tab. So here is the start of the background information tab. So as you can see at the top, we've outlined that the template should be utilized for all providers who provide DDA waiver services, traditional DDA waiver services, that is. Self-directed services and state-only services are not included in the template at this time. We'd also like to note that this is for FY25, so this is for July 1st, 2024 through June 30th, 2025. Those are the only costs that should be reported in this template. The template allows for the reporting of costs through any billing service, so PCIS2, LTSS Maryland, or a combination of the two, so any of those billing systems. We'd also like to provide that there will be more resources on the DDA website. The link will be in the GL template when you open it, and it'll include a link to where you found this video, which includes an FAQ document, an instructions document, as well as the video related to macro enabling. This template has also been updated extensively to reflect feedback from providers, so it is built on your feedback. And the specific updates, as I mentioned before, are listed in the instructions document. And again, just to reiterate, the data to be collected for this template is for DDA Medicaid funded traditional waiver services. Finally, I'd like to note that the data will be collected by geographic location. So there are two geographic areas for this template, rest of state and geographic differential area. So the geographic differential area includes the following counties: Montgomery, Prince George's, Calvert, Charles, and Frederick. All of the other counties in the state will be considered rest of state. So moving into the template itself, here you can see the residential service category with the, in italics here underneath the service names, are our notes and our further clarifications on the use cases for these special tabs like R0 and R2. Then we have the meaningful day service category, and again we see more notes in italics under M3DH. And then we have the support services category. And I do want to note that the version date for your template should be August 14th, 2025, as that is the most recent version of the template. Let's move into the cost categories defined tab. So the cost categories defined tab displays similarly as it did last year, just with the addition of our relevant drop-down box cost items. So we still have items to include and items to exclude for each cost category going down this tab. And this is a reference tab, so you are not required and there are no spaces for data entry on this tab. Moving into the crosswalk cost items tab, this will map our cost items onto specific drop-down menu items. So once again, as you can see that these are descriptions of cost items within each cost category. This again is just a reference tab for you to utilize while filling out your service tabs. Let's move into the provider information tab. So the provider information tab is the first tab that you'll be entering data in. And we'd like you to provide just some basic organization information. So your organization name, Medicaid number, as well as your billing system number. Further, we'd like more information on who is completing the template, as we will be in contact with you throughout the review process. As the way that our process works is that we receive your template, we put it through a first review and then a second review, and then we send the feedback back to you so that you're able to improve your template and refine some of the information in your template, which then gets sent back to us for just a final check through, and that is the conclusion of the process. And at any time throughout the process, whether it's before your submission or before your second submission, you are welcome, and we encourage you to reach out to us to set up calls and meetings with the Hilltop Institute, and we will walk you through and answer the template and answer any questions that you have about the template. We'd also like you to include your internal accounting system that is used for tracking, and then move into the cost allocation methodology for each cost category. Then we'd like you to move into your direct support professional levels and your wages. And please note that we do have DSP levels that are corresponding to these DSP levels in the A column here. And so please report your DSPs here by level. So if you have DSP 3s, please report that here. If you don't, please leave it blank. And the same goes for reporting their hourly wages. Please report these by level. Then we'd like you to report the minimum hours that the DSP needs to work to be considered full-time, and then the average hours that both full-time and part-time DSPs work each week. Then we'd like you to report the number of both full-time and part-time DSPs at the beginning and the end of the fiscal year, and then outline the number of departures and number of vacancies filled for both full-time and part-time DSPs. Now, these numbers might not always align, and that is something that we will be checking for. So if your numbers don't align because of translation of some positions, say from part-time to full-time, please just note that in the provider feedback section down here on why these numbers may not align between the beginning and end of the fiscal year, and then the corresponding departures and vacancies filled. And we also leave some space here to provide any information on data points that aren't being collected that you believe should be collected in the future. We're always looking for provider feedback to improve the template. This is the final tab that's being displayed currently, and this is the service information tab. So as you can see, we have the service names here, the service tab names in column A, and we have checkboxes in column B. We have billing system in column C and region in column D, with the corresponding service name and service category here on the right in column F. So the way that these drop-down menus work, these drop-down menus for billing system and billing region, as you can see that they are not able to be selected right now, is that the service needs to be selected. So let's select tab R2. As you can see, it is now checked, and as you can see in the bottom here, it has now been populated. So we can now access tab R0. Let's head back to the Service Information tab. And on tab R0 here, we see that we have LTSS Maryland and PCIS2 with rest of state and geographic differential for each. So let's say your organization only works within LTSS Maryland and is located within the geographic differential. So the way that we would customize the template, or the service tab for you rather, would be to click the arrow underneath the billing system, the corresponding billing system cell. And as you can see, this arrow here has now appeared. Click LTSS Maryland, and you'll see some changes being made. And then select Geographic Differential. And now let's return to R0. And as you can see, the only column that is available here is now LTSS Maryland, with the Geographic Differential region as the only region that can be reported in. And as I mentioned before, we have included some embedded logic that will help with some of the use cases of these tabs. So as you can see, the R2-DH.CL tab can no longer be selected now that tab R0 has been selected. It's grayed out. So if we unselect tab R0, you'll see that now tab R2 is able to be selected, but the base service tabs within the residential category are now not able to be selected. With tab R2 selected, let's head into the service tab and look at how to select the drop-down menu items. So in column B, you'll see that you have a cost item option, and populating on the right here is a drop-down menu. So as you can see, we have DSP temporary/contractual staff wages and DSP FTE/PTE wages. And you may notice that the hours, despite this being a time-based item, are not able to be accessed yet. You're not able to type. You're able to type here in the expense amount, but you're not able to type in the hours. And that's because this cost item needs to be selected. So if we select this cost item, as you can see, the hours will free, and then you'll be able to enter data into the hours column. And moving through the different cost categories, we can see that some of them have longer lists, as employment-related expenses has a wider variety of items that can be selected. Then here's a list for facility, and then program support, training, transportation, and general administrative, and so on. Now you may notice that we do have slots for other, and these can be filled in by eliminating the other and populating the information within the cost item cell that you'd like to use. And we only allow for 4 of these for each cost category. And as you'll notice, you cannot manually enter cost items within cells that are designated for drop-down menu selections. So moving back into our PowerPoint here, I'd like to talk a little bit about participant counts, because all service tabs will ask for the number of unduplicated participants, which means participants total. If a participant moved from one kind of facility, say a 2-bed residential home, to a 3-bed residential home, they would only be counted once in the unduplicated participants number. So this table and question will always be found all the way to the right of the tab. And the table will look something like what you're seeing at the bottom here. This is for tab R3, and it has the size of the group home, so 1-person, 2-person, 3-person, and so on group homes, the number of sites, so the number of group homes, and then the number of unduplicated participants served annually. Now, some of these are reported by group size, some of these are reported by day of the week. It just depends on the service tab that you're using. And some tabs will only ask for the total number of unduplicated participants served annually, and for this example, it's for all sized homes. So please ensure that you do fill out these tables. Just leave any cells that you're not able to fill with data blank. But please do please do report this data. This information is crucial to the GL template. So let's finish up with some highlights from the service tab categories, as well as the service tabs themselves, and some of the cost categories highlights as well. So as we mentioned before, please only use the R0 tab when all dedicated hours or add-on supports can be broken out at the cost category level for base residential services. And if your organization is not able to do that, then please populate the R2DH.cl tab for all of your cost data for residential services. Further, similar logic applies to using tab M3DH, so please only use this tab if more than one staffing ratio or group size for dehabilitation is provided and the cost between multiple group sizes are not able to be broken out. And if you're using this tab, then no other dehabilitation tabs in the M category should be filled out. So moving into some cost category highlights, starting with the direct care staff cost category, only wages for staff that work directly with participants during the provision of service should be included in this cost category. And if transportation is included as a part of the service, the hours and wages associated with providing it would be included here in direct care staff costs rather than in the transportation cost category. And if employees are working not directly with participants, then we ask that you include them in the program support or even general administrative cost category, depending on their role with your organization. For employment-related expenses, we'd like to mention that this is for all employees, and please include overtime wages in this category. And that is the overtime portion of the overtime wages for this cost category. And please do note that for some cost items in this category, hours will not be needed to be completed. For example, for overtime, we would like the hours, but for something like health insurance, we will not need the hours. For program support, food provided to participants for a meaningful day service would be included in this cost category. But please do note that things like groceries for residential services would be included in the facility cost category. Additionally, office supplies and equipment used to assist in the provision of service would be in program support. Any office supplies and equipment that is not utilized for general administrative purposes. For facility, this includes the operating costs for a facility where a service is provided. So all those costs would be included in the category, things like maintenance, rent, insurance, utilities, and things like that. And again, food provided to participants for community living services at the residence as board would be included in this cost category. For transportation, mileage reimbursement for travel done by DSPs while completing their official duties would be included in this cost category. But again, just a reminder that if it's a part of the service, it belongs in the direct care service cost category. For training, travel costs associated with DSPs going to trainings would be included in this cost category. And please note both your trainer costs and your trainee costs. We are looking for DSP wages while they are attending training with hours. So if you can include that in the training category, that would be great. Finally, general administrative. Facility costs for office space used for general administrative tasks would be in this cost category. This would not include service facility costs, but this would include office space costs. Transportation costs incurred by general administrative staff while fulfilling the duties, GNA duties, that is, general administrative GNA, would be included in this cost category. Transportation costs incurred by general and administrative staff for travel to training specific to their job responsibilities would be included in this cost category as well. Now that brings us to the conclusion of our webinar. So if you have any questions, please reach out to us at the Hilltop Institute. You can reach us at dda_rate@hilltop.umbc.edu, and you can always reach us via the DDA website information as well. Thank you so much for your time today, and please don't hesitate to reach out with any questions or concerns about the template, or any feedback that you have about the template. Thank you.